every semester we start with pen and ink, black and white artwork for a couple different reasons. The first reason being is that a lot of our students like to work traditional, and combination of traditional and digital, and black and white is a nice segue into doing just that. Real quick over some of the supplies, you'll notice I am left-handed. So all of my supplies are set up on the left-hand side. I'm using Higgins Black Magic, the cheapest ink on the face of the planet, some of the most crappy ink that you can buy. I like the cheap stuff because I use a lot of it. Little shot glass for water. If Larson would probably had a bigger glass. What was that actually? Oh, that was weird. Wow, that was strange. Whoa, okay. That's totally crazy, Larson. Okay. Then also, I have one of these for my ink. I have a deal. If I eat someplace and a cheeseburger costs more than $12, I'm stealing this shit. Because one, the containers that most ink come in, they're not great for brushes because you literally can't see the ink that you're putting on top of it. I just want to check something really quick, see if I can shut this so you guys can see a little bit better. And view. And that's awesome, by the way. That is so cool. Okay. It's like being here and not being here. Okay. So some of the other supplies I'm going to use, brush, Winsor Newton Cotman watercolor brushes. They're again more reasonable. I was using Winsor Newton Series 7. They were super expensive. So these I can beat up a little bit. I'm going to use the bamboo stick because I do. And I'm going to actually paint with some eyedroppers. That's the first thing I'm going to do. Washing your brushes. You don't need to wash your brushes all the time. Actually, Larson taught me this. There are things in your brushes. There's a little bit of oil in the brush, and you want to keep those oils. And if you wash them every time, like really heavy, you're going to remove some of the oil. So about once a month or twice a month, every other month, I'll use a brush cleaner to clean my brushes out. Rinse them off.
Don't take soap to them all.
And then the other thing is, if you use a watercolor or a paintbrush for inks, it is now an inking brush. No matter what you do, you will never be able to get the black pigment out. If you don't believe me, go ahead and try to use watercolors with it. And as soon as you hit the yellow watercolor, it looks like a bumblebee's backside. So like, it just always is there. So I'm gonna grab and change ring finger. I'm not used to that shit. I'm going to grab the eyedropper. Now the thing with painting with the eyedropper is you have to move relatively quickly and loose. I'll usually ink 2 of them. You'll see that I have 2 up here. One's on marker comp paper and one's on Bristol paper. Actually going to pass around 2 different kinds of paper so you can see. In the syllabus it actually asks that you use something better than your sketchbook for finishes. So in the Bristol pad it's nice and smooth. And the Crescent illustration board is a bit rougher. Something that you can try if you're interested in inking. I don't like to redraw things. If I get a good drawing or I get a good sketch, I'll print it out at home in light blue or red on marker comp paper or Bristol. Another thing I've been experimenting with is the nice matte paper in the lab. Prints pencils nicely, excuse me, and it also takes inks really, really well. I'll do 2 of these. I'm not going to do 2 in front of you because that would be really boring to see me ink the same thing twice. But basically, I'll ink 2 of them, scan them both, and pick the best parts. And you can see some examples of it up there. For every one comic, I ink it twice with the eyedropper. I'm going to work top to bottom and right to left so I don't smudge anything. So I load up the eyedropper with ink. Make sure there's some on there. I've got a disposable palette because I'm lazy and I don't want to clean my palette when I'm done. And so I'll move relatively quick through the piece. And you have to be open to mistakes. But I can get a real nice thick and thin by pushing on the eyedropper. I actually like to use some of the older eyedroppers because I get more play in the backside. That sound really, really raw.
It's a little more worn.
Worn on the
on the backside.
Yeah, thank you. And what's nice about this, personally, you'll see a lot of my work, there's a lot of cross-hatching, and I went a little cross-hatching crazy for a while. And it took me away from, well, one, it took me away from having some fun, and two, I was getting really, really tight with my artwork. And this forced me to loosen up. So now I'm going to move down and get into the figure. But if I want some thinner lines, I can take the bamboo piece, come back in, and pull the ink around. Because it's really laying right on top. If I need more, I can just dip my bamboo in the dish. And get some nice thin lines. Again, I'll probably tweak this digitally by moving some of the artwork around. In fact, I'll probably use part of this as my demo when we do the digital demo. So now I'm going to get into the figure. I'm going to spend a little bit more time, a little slower. Load up the eyedropper with ink. I have two different kinds of eyedroppers. This one is great for thicker lines. This one's better for thinner lines, and it just comes right with it. Working back and forth between that and a pen, I can get a lot of line variation. So again, nice and thick to thin. Get the head shape in there. Really loose. Larson taught me a little bit of a trick when drawing circles. If you hold your breath a little bit, you get a nice cleaner circle and a straight line.
Get nice and dizzy too.
Yeah, you just got to remember to breathe. Late at night, you kind of forget. And again, what it forces me to do is move pretty quickly through the piece. And it's not about being perfect. I know, as that chair is older than the building itself. I'm also thinking about where some shadows fall, and I might fill those in. I'll also come back with the bamboo brush for some of that. What I also like is because it's an eyedropper, I get some splatter as I move along through the piece. I do. And it scans really nicely.
Splatter does scan very nice.
It does. So I'll just dip a little ink on this. Get the eyelashes in there. I also can come back in and fill some things in, especially where the ink is nice and... Yep, thank you. No, I appreciate it. And it forces me to move quick throughout the piece, which I really, really like. I'm not really keen on the nose, so I'll either fix that with whiteout or in the second one that I'll ink. And literally what it's been is liking a figure in one, liking the type in the other. With hand-done type, especially if you're doing it really loose, you have to be open to doing it more than one time. Larson and I do have a hand-done type demo planned for right around the time you guys are working on your gig posters. And one of the things you'll notice is we both do it, we'll do the type multiple times in order to get the best S, the best E. And it doesn't matter if you're doing gig posters or greeting cards, that's sort of the norm when you're doing hand-done type.
The nice thing is that, you know, we live in an era where you can just kind of assemble it on the computer. So
yeah,
you don't have to be so precious with everything.
Actually, I think that's why I started using the eyedropper, is it made me not be so precious with stuff. I was really, really like fine-tuning and tweaking, and I didn't like that I was spending so much time trying to make something look loose. And so that would be one, and the things that I would fix in the next one, some of the type treatment, some of the things with the figure and the legs. I find that this is the Bristol, and it takes it pretty good. The marker comp paper takes it a little bit better. I'll just show you really quick with some of the type on that one. And literally, if you look at, you can thumb through the piles of stuff. For third eye, kind of look like a serial murderer. How many times I've written like certain words.
Serial killers.
And this, it just rests a little bit more on top. And what's really fun is sometimes you get these little bubbles and you can come in and pop them. And you get a little bit of splatter right near.
Ever try adding like a tiny bit of soap to the ink to make it bubble more?
Does that make a bubble more? I get enough because so much air gets trapped.
Yeah.
And the other thing, this forces me to work a little bit bigger because you can't really do some of this tiny. And, you know, it bleeds in places, so I'll probably take the H off of the old one. And I'll knock out like 2, 3 of these, kind of move on, wait till they all dry. It takes a little while for them to dry. I'm going to move them off of here so I don't put my hand in it. Next thing I want to show you is brushwork. I'm going to show eyedropper and brush. Larson's going to show brush pens and dip pen, right?
Yeah, I have a little brush too, but I'm gonna get more detailed stuff.
All right. So one of the things I would suggest with everybody is warming up. These are some of the warm-ups I've done over the last couple of years. I'll take the back of an envelope and I'll just draw a creature on the envelope, and you can see them in different stages of completion. Like that's about halfway done. This is maybe 3/4 of the way done. And here is one. This one's completely done. It's so strange to see it giant on that screen. So one of the reasons you want to use a brush or a brush pen is you can get really good line variation. You can go from thick to thin. So, and basically with line or outline, you can create depth and volume just by the line weight that you use. Now with this, I'm using the watercolor brush with a little bit of water on it, but mostly ink. The more water you add, the more gray your ink becomes. So what's nice is I can get a nice thin line, and I can get a nice thick line, and then I can also get a line that starts out thin and goes to thick and thin again. I can also get a nice curved line and a nice straight line. And with a little bit of line variation, you can get a lot of volume, a lot of dimension without a lot of work. I'm just going to outline this to start to show you. There's some universal truths in cartooning and anatomy and creating things. Both of us do not draw real life because, quite honestly, real life is fucking boring. But one of the things we do is we go for a level of believability. So we both draw creatures and monsters and fantasy and stuff like that, but we're always trying to make a believable world. And some of the things you can apply to your character designs, your creatures, or characters on your DVD and Blu-ray and book covers and art in general are universal throughout. For example, I'll throw some your way. Almost all of us have a shadow right here. So if I was inking, I start out thin here, start thicker underneath, and then thin out again. I'm going to make everybody super self-conscious because you're all going to look around the room and stare at each other's lips. But everybody in this room, your top lip is darker than your bottom lip. Everybody started looking around. That's awesome. It's just because it's always cast in shadow. So again, if I was just inking my lips, that would be really weird in front of you all. I'd make the top one black and I just outline the bottom one. So I'm going to give some volume to this just by thick and thin. So for example, the eye, I'll start out thin, get thicker as it comes around, and thin out again. And you can get this really nice little cat's eye. Thin, thick as it dips down, and thinner again. And the one thing that's nice about working on these envelopes is that it's not the most forgiving material, and I'll just start inking on them as a warm-up. The one thing I've noticed a lot of my students do is they don't necessarily want to warm up. They just want to jump right into what they're doing. And that's fine sometimes. I would strongly suggest inking in your sketchbook, playing around, experimenting a little bit. So I'm just going to ink a couple parts and I'll describe what I'm doing as I go along. Thin, then thick again. I'm just using it to describe some of the features and the ridges of the nose. Thin around the edges, thick right underneath the nostril, thin, thick underneath the nose, thick in each nostril. For the mouth, same deal. Nice and thin at the top crest of the mouth. As I bring it back down, I'm also turning the brush a little bit just to get the most ink off the brush. It's got a little like cat-like divot right underneath the nose. Thick again and thin as it tapers up. I'm not going to ink this whole thing because I'm not going to bore the shit out of you. But you can get the idea. And I can kind of do this all wet line if I choose to. And I'll do that for a little bit longer. The other thing is, a nice little trick, you'll notice twice now I've inked in front of you, and I go from right to left. It's because I'm left-handed. I do that for two reasons. One, in school, they used to beat it out of us that they really wanted us to be nice with our penmanship, so I had to make sure. I was of the age in the 4th grade, they invented erasable pens, which meant I just smudged the shit out of all my notes. My mom had to have one of those parent-teacher conferences about how horrible my notes were. And so I started to write and pay attention to smushing things with the side of my hand. So when I started to draw and make art, I almost always go from right to left just so I won't smudge, and that way my mom won't have to go to any more parent-teacher conferences. The other reason I do it, and this is a nice little trick for everybody in the room, because everybody in the room likes to draw, draw on the opposite side of the hand that you are. And one of the reasons you might want to do this, you've all run into this, you draw on a face, and you draw the eye, and it's on your right side because you're right-handed, and then you go and try and draw the eye on the left side, and you can't get that damn thing to look good. The stronger side is the side that you draw with. So if you start on the right, in my case, because I'm left-handed, I have a better chance of copying it and making it look good on the left side. So if I like it on the right, I'm going to make it look pretty good on the left side. So I just usually work right to left. Most of you in this room will work left to right. Larson, do you do the same thing?
I am a maniac.
Okay, yeah, I know that, but that's not what I asked.
I ink from the bottom up.
Okay, you go from the bottom up.
Because I'm short, so I ink from what's close. When I ink the page, I ink from what's closest to me, what's furthest away. And I remember when I was in school, being at home and doing work, and my dad, like, why are you inking it that way? You're going to smudge everything. I'm like, yeah, it's dry. By the time I get up to the top, and I do wait till stuff is dry. Like, I'll take breaks. If you look at my stuff, it's pretty detailed. I'll take breaks during pages and, like, work on something, another page, and then go back to the page I'm working on. Just so I'm not working over wet ink.
So you're weird.
No, I Patch's way is way more, it makes way more sense.
In general.
Does it?
There you go. Who said that? That was good. Yes. I have a more orthodox way.
Yeah.
Larson is a bit more unorthodox.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Another thing you can do with brush and brush pen is you can get these nice little hatch marks. Again, I'm not really cross-hatching this yet. I'm going to do a little bit, but I'm going to leave that to Larson. But one of the things is, if you watch, you can get these nice little hatch marks if your brush is nice and pointy. And you can kind of create shadows just with the hash marks of the brush. And to get a nice point, they come to a nice point. Bless you. And you can do the same thing in the teeth. Nice and thin at the bottom, thick. And that's a pretty graphic treatment as I move around the face. If I was doing a full piece, like this one here, here's another one where I just printed it out in red on Bristol board. The Bristol that we passed around, that pad, nice and smooth, that'll run through my shitty Epson printer at home. So again, top to bottom, right to left, or in Larson's case, completely bizarro, bottom to top, right in the center.
I'll pick a face, and I'll start at the face.
Okay.
And then I'll work out from there, and then I'll be bored, and then I'll go down to like the bottom and do some stuff on the bottom, and then I'll go up to the top and just I go all over.
You know what? You bring up a really good point. One of the things, and you and I are on the same page when it comes to this, and this is where we differ than probably almost every other art teacher you've ever had, because they're all liars. A lot of your instructors and art teachers will tell you, work all over the piece, bring up the whole piece together, and what painting, but, and that is good, that is great advice, that is awesome, that is also very boring. You all know there's a part that you really want to work on. In fact, it's probably the first part you drew. That's fine. You know what? If you want to finish off part of it, or at least like get the face to a point where you like it, do it. Because the energy from that will carry you into the rest of the piece.
And then, like, I'll be doing a paint, there's a panel I love, and I'll save that one for last. So it's like, so I get
cherry on top.
It's like eating your vegetables first, right? And then eating the macaroni and cheese last, so that's the last taste in your mouth. That's kind of what it is.
You basically just described how I ate dinner last night. I had the peas and carrots first, and then being me, I went for more chicken nuggets and mac and cheese. So now I'm just going to outline this whole thing, nice, thick, and thin throughout. The thing you want to keep in mind, there's no real Command Z for inking. Like once you put a line down, you're kind of stuck with it, except that like there's whiteout pens. I'll use the Presto, it's nice and thick. And then Larson turned me on to the Signo, which is nice and thin. Yeah, this is beautiful on black paper. You can draw right with it.
Those are great for like little details within large areas of black. Any kind of black line art you want to do. I've yet to find a really great white. I feel like the Speedball white is the closest I've gotten to a really nice
white ink.
But like, I've always had a lot of trouble with the Pro White. It's always been way too thick.
It's like acrylic.
Yeah, and even liquid acrylic is still kind of gums up a brush. So far, the Speedball white has been really good, and then the Signal broad pens are nice if you don't want to have a whole separate brush just for white. I like this. And the Prestos are great too. They're just kind of unwieldy. So if you're doing something with any kind of detail,
yeah, it can't get super thin.
They're great for taking out a whole section. If you like really screwed up a face, and you're like, God, I use this Presto right on top of that.
We have a handout. Most of our students seem to like brush pens, and there's only a certain amount, like the Pentel brush pen, which is the one you and I use like a lot, is the most accessible. They have that at Dick Blick. We have a couple more, so we're going to give you a handout for Jet Pens. And Jet Pens is a really cool site. Has like every kind of inking instrument you can think of.
Yeah, and it's one of those sites where if you can get a company together, if you spend more than $25,
yeah,
shipping. Which anyone who orders on the online knows free shipping is like
the only reason to do it.
Yeah.
That's even better than Amazon too.
Yeah. And it makes me nuts because their shipping is super expensive, so if you try to order from online.
You have to kind of order it from the store if you want to get it.
No, they charge you shipping there too.
Really?
Because they ship it to your house. Yeah, U-Trek never did. U-Trek would come to the store, but they would charge you shipping because they ship it to your house.
Oh, you just got all kind of angry at an art store. That
I
was cool.
No, I don't know. Then U-Trek's not. It bummed me out because they were more, I think, customer friendly.
A little bit. They didn't carry a lot of shit. Real quick, I'm just going to talk a little bit about cross-hatching, and then you're going to pick up where I leave off. I had a drawing teacher here at the University of the Arts named Karen Saylor, and she talked a little bit about cross-hatching and tonality and stuff in her class, in her drawing class. She was also a little crazy, which was awesome. Straight lines don't really help you in the same way curved and round lines do, especially if you're drawing something organic. Most of us are organic, and if you're drawing this wall, straight lines might be great for cross-hatching, but if you're drawing a face or a creature or something that's alive, round lines just feel more natural. So a lot of times you'll see me cross-hatch with rounded lines. So if I was going to cross-hatch in and around the nose, which I kind of already started, I'd come in with a couple lines right in here, and notice they're all curved. And then I tilt the paper or tilt my brush, and I come back in with another set. And one of the things I would suggest with cross-hatching is less is more when you start. It's always easy to add more lines. It's almost damn near impossible to remove lines without really seeing it. So you kind of want to come in and cross-hatch just a little bit to start. And I almost see it like etching or painting, and it's a buildup of stroke. It's a buildup of line. And so I'll kind of zone out and put something on Netflix and start to cross-hatch. And the whole time I'm starting to think about where the light is falling. And again, some of those universal truths, there'll be a nice highlight on the eyes because they're nice and wet. There'll be a highlight on the nose and some highlight on the teeth. And wherever things overlap is where I put shadows. And that's where the thick and thin comes into place. Because like down in here where I went really thick, chances are there's going to be a nice shadow down there. And I'd come in and cross-hatch on that. And you'll see that with some of the pieces over there. There's a Cyclops piece that has a lot of cross-hatching. And you can see like the slow buildup in and around here, in and around the eye. And it's starting to take shape and take form. For a lot of you, I'd suggest even playing around with tonality in your sketches and then trying to translate that into ink line. Last thing I'll show you is some splatter, because that's fun and I like to do that. And so, like, I have like the thing, because it's the thing. I just happen to have the thing.
Oh, look at that. Oh, look at that.
Yeah, and it's done. And so, like, if I was inking in here, thick and thin again, just like we talked about. I'll probably use thick for the outer lines, some thin for the inside lines, kind of make some decisions as I draw. Some suggestions in terms of inking, no matter what tool, because like we're going to demonstrate about 4 different tools in front of you. Hold the tool, whether it's a brush, a pen, a nib. Ink like you draw to start. Don't change the way you hold things or the lines or the marks you make because you're holding something different. If you want to get really good at something, rather than sketch underneath, go ahead and just try drawing with the material. You want to get better with markers, just draw with markers. If you want to get better with ink, just draw right in your sketchbook with ink. I'm going to slide my computer back just a little bit. When you're...
You want to look up there?
Yeah, here you go. So when you're doing splatter, it's fun. You can take that first look at it, because I like this shirt. You want to cover your beer gut. It works best if you have like 1 or 2 brushes.
Old toothbrushes are great.
Toothbrushes are great. You can kind of sprinkle them. You get a nice fine, like almost mist. This is great for snow, rain, stone. If you mess up on a piece and you want to hide it, you splatter and it makes it look like you want to do that on purpose. So I'm going to load up the brush with ink. So it's nearly like jam-packed with ink. Take another material and like just tap it. The further away I go, the lighter the mist. I think the closer, no, other way around. Closer I go, the smaller. Further away I go, the bigger. And I can just kind of control it as I go along. And I'll get some really neat areas like down in here, looks pretty good. Then I will let it dry and then ink on top. Any questions about any of the materials that I have in front of me? All right, couple quick things just to remind you. 1, ink like you draw, especially if it's the first time you're holding a brush or a brush pen. Cheaper is better. One of the things that I don't like anymore is that art supplies are getting more and more expensive, and digital supplies are getting cheaper and cheaper. And what that may mean is we might lose painters and traditional artists because it's just cheaper to buy a digital brush or cheaper to buy like a program than it would be to buy oil paints or pen and ink. So start cheap, but if you get really good at something with the cheap stuff,
you spend the money.
Spend money.
What you should spend the money on, if you're going to spend your money on anything, get good paper.
Yeah.
Don't get crappy paper. Nothing is worse than fighting your paper.
Yeah. Experiment in that area too, because like some papers take things better than others. I find that the marker comp paper is good, but it's a little more absorbent than the Bristol. If I go to try and draw with the eyedropper on Xerox paper, it bleeds horribly and looks really creepy.
Yeah, so I mean, I would say at first, maybe if you want to go on a little paper adventure, to maybe get a couple of different things. You can get sheets of stuff at the in that art store. You don't have to get like a whole pad or something. You might want to try just a sheet, and maybe a couple of you guys going on a sheet together, and you can cut it up. They're huge, they're gigantic, and kind of see what feels right.
And experiment in your sketchbook. Usually this is where I'll play around with different pens. And so you'll see me just using a new pen. Real tiny in my back pocket. This is one of the many, many reasons people don't sit next to me on the train. I also like to listen to people and write down what they say.
It's all backwards.
It is.
That's
it
fine.
Says, that dress looks like ill-fitting on me, and I drew this really weird monster. Real quick, just a couple examples. Looking at other people and how they ink or draw or paint, extremely helpful. This is Doug TenNapel's Gear. This was a comic when I was first getting into comics. I just thought it was beautiful and really well done, real brushy and loose and a lot of fun. So it was a huge influence. And you can see it in some of the panels, the good jet blacks, the nice whites of the page, the way the type is done. Very inspirational. I'll leave these books out so you can take a look. What's that?
Just like this.
Oh, you can do that way. Okay, here, let's do that. The next book is, if you want to learn anything about comics, anything about inking, anything about art, anything about life, you should read Calvin and Hobbes.
Oh, yeah.
Basically, everything you need to know about art in general is in a Calvin and Hobbes comic strip. Again, nice, clean lines, but they're a little loose, black and white. He inks like he draws, and it's really neat, especially for those of you interested in storytelling. What's that? Oh, sure. In terms of like seeing how someone inks and then how they translate that ink into watercolor, Bill Watterson and Calvin and Hobbes is a great resource for that. Then the last thing I'll show you, really big influence on me just in terms of like work ethic. This is Bernie Wrightson's Frankenstein.
Nice.
And I'm, as you can tell, like huge monster fan, and Frankenstein is probably one of my favorite books. Horror books, movies, everything. And let me just see if I can find his. And his Frankenstein was, without question, one of my favorite Frankensteins. It was very Swamp Thing. There's his face right there. Yeah. Set this up just a touch. And so you can see. And then these were massive, massive pages in the book. Really cool cross-hatching.
He did this because he thought that all the old school etchings were just pen and ink. So he basically did pen and ink etching. It's crazy. And
then the thing I love most, I'll hold this up and then I'll put it on camera. This is one of my favorite pieces. Frankenstein's not in there, but he drew the snow without drawing the snow, just the plan of the white of the page, and it's a really beautiful page in terms of like planning out the white and the black. And you can see it in like all the thought that goes into all the little snow on the tree branches, and as it gets further back, the detail gets closer to one another. And I used to flip through this book, and it would drive me crazy, and I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to get there. And then I found this book, which is Bernie Wrightson's Thumbnails for Frankenstein, and it gave me hope because, let me see, we all can do this. Like, I saw it. I saw a wall full of this today, and that means that this can't be too far away, I hope. But, like, you can see, he does the same process that we all do. He thumbnails something out real loose, and then figures it out, reference, builds up the image. All right, I'll leave this stuff out. We're going to slide this over. Is that your plan?
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Well, I still have to, you guys want to take like 5-10 minutes? Don't stop it because it can stop recording.
It is. Perfect. It's 2 o'clock now. If you want to take a 10-minute break, now would be a great time to take a 10-minute break. Yeah. Larson's got a bunch of pages. I have a bunch of pen and ink stuff out. Feel free to look through it. Take a break. 2:10. Yeah. We'll start the second part of this.
This is still running, so don't say anything you don't want to go into the internet. Wait, what is it? I don't know. Is it okay? Okay.
That's why
I just did this, and I was like, I was like, oh god.
This one's a little drip.
I just figure it's easier.
Yes, that's a great idea. Oh, cool. These really reasonable brushes, $5-6. These aren't bad either. And then she's going to do some pens. The pens she has range in cost from $5-6 up on to $12-14.
Yeah.
That's the ink. A lot of people don't like this type of ink because it's cheaper and a little chalky. I don't mind it, particularly with stuff like that, because it flows really nice and it's pretty thick. I'm gonna have to do
Sorry.
I like some of the type, but like, I like the eyes.
I actually need to get myself some water.
I like that flame, I don't like that flame. And when I scan it up, I like bring them all together. Some people keep telling me, we were talking today, a regular stick, and you shave it to make it pointy, and she suggested that you put a little divot at the end, it'll hold a little bit more ink.
You put a slice into it so that it holds a little more ink in it. Yeah. What you might want to do is you end up getting a fresh piece of wood because it'll be wet. You want that to dry to like you're curing firewood. You know what I mean? Because if it's too wet and you start working with it,
warp and stuff.
Yeah.
So you want to dry out, leave it on like a windowsill and let it dry out and then shave it into a wood. Someone's telling me that there's bamboo sticks that aren't like, don't have that to them, and they're just a stick called a Z stick that's shaved into a point. I'm looking into that. Since I get one, I'll bring it into class and start playing with it and show you guys. The eyedroppers came about, my wife works for a greeting card company. They had this really neat new style, and I was like, how do you guys get that new style? And like, a lot of us came with eyedroppers. So I made a mess. The first couple were horrible. I just started working this way. I love the way they scan, and there's a looseness to it too. Like you get up close. I would try and do that by hand with other stuff, a little bit of splatter. It's so hard to do, and it just comes right out of the eyedropper. A little bit of splatter here and there. You can see it on some of the ones over there. There's this nice splatter, and that nice thick and thin, like the droppiness. There's no additional brush yet. That really does that. And the other thing I do when I scan it is I'll select this and move it over and I'll get my spacing. I'm really sorry to get that out right now. I find like OCD and ACD is like big. But the thing I recommend most is taking your drawing and not drawing it over and over again. If you can scan it, if you can Xerox it.
I always feel like it's more about refinement than it is about redrawing it. Yeah. So you want to take that original drawing and take a piece of like tracing paper, marker composite paper, or even if you have like a light table, and use that drawing as a base and just refine what you have, as opposed to going and redrawing and redrawing and redrawing. Or then you lose the looseness in a thumbnail and you redraw it too much.
When I scan it and I adjust the contrast, it goes away. Yeah. Yeah, and one of the things is because the black is so jet black, it's really easy to tweak the black line. Sketch for it, and so I just scanned it. I did tweak the type further apart, and I get them bigger. You won't see it. You'll see it a little bit in the first scan, and then we're going to show you middle semester how to clean up your technique and clean up your drawings and stuff. There's a couple different settings you can use, and I'll go over right now. So when we both do both, a little bit more me than you, because you're not as lazy as I am. When I do comics, I don't draw many of my panels. I scan them.
Oh yeah, once I have the pencils done.
Yeah. And I ink right on top of the scan of it. So that if I mess up one panel, I can come back. The other thing I'll do is I'll print out digital type in my word bubbles, and then I'll ink on top of that, which will. I'll show you that. I didn't bring any comic books with me today. I'll bring the comics in when we talk about comic books in 2 assignments. We still got a couple minutes.
Okay.
About 5.
Yeah. There's not much. I think this is everything I need right here.
Yep. What's that? Just put the tip in there. I think now I'm going to do all the but let's show our suggestions. Literally just adjusting curves. I like sometimes. I don't want consistently going so you get some more texture here. This is just a flat color, but I have texture, so and a lot of people visually are trying to make it a combination of traditional and visual, and then you see some of the mistakes. Card is my middle name. I love that he has like he's full of shields.
Yeah, it's just like a bunch of different shields.
To finish that.
I like that one.
His face is all like.
I like them because they look like injured envelopes.
They do, like someone punched them in the face. I was in bed. It was about a half hour, right?
Yeah. When you start, yeah. I'm gonna try to use as fast as I can. I mean, with the brush pens, I move a little quicker because I'm not dipping and cleaning so much.
Yeah.
So, I don't get into that zen.
Yeah, no, it's really hard. Like it takes me a little while. I felt at the very end I was doing good stuff. In the very beginning, it's one reason why the eyedropper is a good place to start.
Yeah.
Even bad eyedropper looks like
Kind of neat.
an eyedropper.
It has like this kind of like Jim Mosswood feel to it.
You should see that I'm doing a Defenders piece because I'm a nerd. I just watched Jessica Jones and Daredevil again.
All right.
And I'm channeling a little.
Actually, when we're not live on the internet, I would like to hear your opinion on Jessica Jones because I have a weird thing, but I don't want to.
Why are you afraid the internet to know?
Well, I don't want to get into that.
Okay.
I don't want that to be a part of our inking demo.
You don't want to nerd out about how awesome.
I'm a complete nerd. I just don't want that to overshadow the work we're doing as a censor. Yeah. What?
Jessica. Oh, okay. Now did you watch Daredevil?
Yes. Obviously, I think Jessica Jones had a way higher budget because the yellow gels in Daredevil, which I feel like if it was a week-to-week show, you wouldn't notice. But like when me and Chris were watching it, like somewhere around episode 6, I'm like, the fuck is wrong with Hell's Kitchen? Like
well, everything's broken.
Everything's
Why not? I'll do. I'm gonna go run and maybe just help you.
Oh, right on here. Patch tweeted it.
This is Twitter. I'm trying to find it.
It's like monster. Hold on. Monster. Yeah. I don't want to take it.
So I just found them on Twitter somehow.
Oh, okay.
Monster Comics. And then this is
Okay, yeah.
It's a clip. Yeah.
How do I get rid of my face?
You hit the camera.
Cool beans. All right.
There you are.
Whoa! I love how mine didn't show up.
Shit, right. I love the like.
What you do?
That is I can never
Broke
get
it.
tired.
Wheat, sugar, everything's fine for you. Bread. You can also like flax and boots, like flax, They don't, they're not more creative. But I like if you like that, or if you like handsome paper. You find if you don't have things like that long wall. This is a small unit, like I'm sure you and you can layer it onto your card. I would suggest black. It shows briefly the like if you're all on top like black outline. I might demo that. Yeah. You're okay if I keep drawing and I drop over here? Will it throw you off if I start throwing things at you?
I'm trying to post this to my thing in Facebook. It's just my phone is a million years old.
Sure. So was not paying attention to what I was doing. I used every single eyedropper. I was like, and this one.
Use every
I can't
single.
believe I said it out loud. Oh, it's still on there. You all set?
I'm ready. Okay, guys.
Hey, gang. Larson's going to go over a couple more. Now, Larson has her back to you, so I will be her eyes if
Yeah.
you guys start to fall asleep or make faces. And she throws stuff, and she's extremely accurate.
It's true.
So she'll notice. She also has a third eye right back.
Right ahead.
She has a kid.
I have
so
a
that
kid
means-
now, so that
that
chick
means
grew
under
in
the bump.
overnight. It's crazy. All right. I'm gonna go. What do you mean? Is it upside down? It's right side up. I'm just going the other way. I want to go over some brush pens, brushes to some extent, some dry brush stuff, and then dip pens or nibs, dip and pen and ink. So a little of everything. Basically, I'm going to go over more detailed stuff. So drew this guy in. My pencils are like ass. I just scribble, and there's a picture in there. I swear to God. So at this point, I'm going to go in, and I'm just going to start working on drawing. And one of the nice things about brush pens is that they're actually very familiar. They should feel like a regular pen. These are the Zebra sign pens. And I like these. They come in fine, super ultra fine, and then regular
I have to
size.
say it. They come in fine.
Fine. And then a regular thicker size I don't use quite so much. I usually, if I'm going to do bigger, broader strokes, I just grab a brush. It covers more area, and I'm not trying to scrub out blacks. So I'm going to grab just the regular fine size. I like these because they're waterproof and also marker proof, which are two different things. When you're getting ink, when you're trying to get ink for your stuff, you're going to have to kind of play around because some stuff is waterproof and then some stuff is marker proof. And they're two different things because markers are alcohol based. A lot of them will smear waterproof inks. And like Sumi ink, which you can put markers on all day and night and it won't smear, is only water resistant, so it'll smudge if you try to watercolor over it. It's been a battle to really find stuff to ink and do traditional stuff, but I do most of my stuff in watercolor and colored ink now, so I don't worry so much about the marker anymore. Anyway, the Zebra pens, they're great. They take, you can put a lot of crap on top. So I'm going to do the lettering first. I letter by hand. Yeah, I usually go through and do all my lettering first. I would suggest for you guys, because you are, I'm sorry, I'm trying to
Ink and talk.
ink and talk. Because you guys are doing like titles and author stuff, and unless the type is really running into your drawing, you might want to letter separate, just so that you're not fighting your lettering and also fighting the drawing and trying to draw around stuff.
I'd say for sure, if you're planning on painting in any way, shape, or form, but you still want to do the type by hand, do it on a separate piece, whether it's trace, marker, comp paper, or even a piece of crystal. And then we'll show you in the next week or two how to scan it and lay it over top of your artwork.
It's not that hard. Writing words.
Christine, where do you get most of your brushes or brush pens?
I go on jet pens. I'm that guy. I go on jet pens and just I binge buy off of jet pens. There was a point where I was like going on like every month because I had the money, and I'm like, what does this do? And I just bought a ton of stuff. I don't do that crazy shit no more. I try to be a little more frugal. I definitely have settled into certain kinds of things that I just prefer to use.
That we have a handout. Jet Pens runs if you like any of the stuff that you see Larson demo, Jet Pens has this wonderful brush pen sampler. It's about $25 for 5 pens, which is great because one of the pens in the set is a $12 pen.
Yeah.
So it's like getting 2 pens for free, and at the $25 price point, it's free shipping. So if anybody's interested in some of the stuff that we demoed or some of the things along here, there's a handout right on this blank desk here that has Jet Pen's website and 5 different pens, 2 or 3 of which Christine's going to demo.
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm just going to go through with the Zebra pen and just try to get some of this drawing down, since I drew it very, very loose, this dude. I don't know if I'm gonna have time to do the whole thing, only because I went and got crazy and did like a whole background and crap. I might continue just to work on this while you guys go to do your own separate thing. But I ink fast. I don't, even when I'm inking with a brush, I don't like to ink too slow because it's I like a looser line. Just personally, just visually as an aesthetic, I just like looser stuff. But I also like really detailed stuff. So I end up, I don't know, going back and forth a lot. Okay, I'm almost done. He tied a lot of shields to his front this morning, so I gotta just get all the shields in.
Did you do pen and ink when you went here?
It was weird. Thank you, Pat. You give me leading questions while I work. I'm trying to think.
You usually have Slayer playing in the background.
I know. I usually have something loud and
angry.
angry. So when I went here, I was taught mostly painting. When I came here, that was a big thing. I don't know if was that the same for you? Did you do a lot of painting?
Back in the day, it was very traditional based. There was very few computer classes. Your year, 10 years in the future, there was a bit more. You had robot butlers, right, in your class?
Yeah, we had robot butlers.
It was very painting oriented. Majority of my friends and stuff all did acrylic and oil paints, which drove me crazy because I could neither acrylic or oil paint. So I did inks and I did watercolor.
And they're great. It's a great aesthetic. It's a classic cartooning aesthetic, definitely the ink and watercolor. And I think it has a really wide range now, especially when you start to bring stuff into the computer. I feel like there's more and more you can do with just using black and white line work and then computer coloring it. It kind of brings out a lot of, I don't know, brings out the ink a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to save, I'm starting a detail. I'm not going to do that. I'm just doing broad strokes. I'm going to save the detail for when I get to my dip pen because that's a whole different thing. So just like when Pat was doing stuff with his, with the brush, I'm doing the same thing with the brush pen. I'm thinking about thick and thin. I'm thinking about where I'm putting my lines. I'm obviously doing things a little more flat. We have a slightly different drawing style that way. Like sometimes I'll do stuff really flat and then I'll get really detailed and then I'll get flat again. It's a mix of a couple different styles that I like, which I don't know, it's not always a smart thing. But I basically would go through and keep inking and inking and inking until this whole thing had some basis of line around it. And as I go, I'll take a thicker brush, or if I'm doing a brush, I'll go through and I will start to lay down some heavier shadow.
So basically you lay down all the middle lines and some thin.
Yeah.
And then you build up from there?
Yeah, so now we have some shadow from underneath his arm guards, shoulder guards, whatever the fuck those are. And I'll go in and...
That would be the technical term?
Yeah, those fucking things. And then I'm going to go under the shields because those are all piled up really high. And I would go through and do all of the darker colors in there. And then if I really want to get crazy, super crazy, really crazy detailed, I'm going to hatch. Now, I don't patch cross hatches. I tried to cross hatch, and it's always a fucking disaster. It's like the worst thing. It gets really muddy. So I just regular hatch, which is really just making little marks. And you didn't say it this time, so I'm going to say it. I kind of pretend that they're little ants.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
They're little ants crawling across the surface.
Oh, that's so cute. You remember.
I remember your little ants. And it basically amounts to just like little tiny marks that kind of give texture. I like to hatch, I hatch for shading, but I'm also hatching for texture. I want the texture of the hatch mark. Otherwise, I would just lay in a flat black, or I would take a wash and just throw a wash in there. So I right now am noodling. And I like to noodle. I don't do this a ton. I'll do this when I have time. I enjoy it. I find it extremely relaxing. But I think the best way to do it is to lay in the broader areas, start looser, and then go in and start to noodle. Because if you start to noodle right at the beginning, you're going to get stuck in an area for way too long, and next thing you know, 7 hours have gone by, and you're no closer to being finished. So normally, I would go through, and like I'm going to do all the little chainmail for his arm. I'll do that with my my dip pen. The dip pen I'm using, it kind of sucks. You can't get this. I don't think you can get these at Dick Blick. These are the Tachikawa spoon model.
Spell that.
I can't. There's a
Sorry.
you can get these from Jet Pens. They are manga nibs. I really like manga nibs. I used to hate dip pen. Now I get like vintage nibs and stuff off of eBay. I'm like, what does this nib do? Because all nibs are different, especially when you start to get into like vintage nibs and stuff they don't make anymore. But the manga nibs are great if you've never used nibs before, because nibs are one of the hardest things you can possibly draw with. Is a nib, is a dip pen. If you can draw with a dip pen, you fucking draw with anything. I don't care who you are. So I would say start with a manga nib because they're very forgiving. They don't do a really huge range of line. Here, I'll do a line up here. So that's the thin, and then this is the thick, and I'm pressing pretty hard here. They're a fairly stiff nib, but they hold a lot of ink. Yeah, son. They hold a lot of ink. They're really reliable. They usually won't totally bleed out on you, which is a big thing with nibs, where you'll be inking something and inking something and inking something, and then all of a sudden there's a giant blob right in the middle because your nib just dumped a pile of ink in the spot. Manga nibs don't really do that too much if you're getting a good one. So I would say if you're new to nibs but you want to try nibs out because you like the smaller, thinner line, like that's your bag, then to go with a manga nib because I feel like you're going to fight it less. Another thing to do when you're new to a material, like whenever I'm like, oh, I want to try this thing I've never tried before. Don't draw something super complicated to do in a brand new medium. I would say draw something you're comfortable with. Most people are comfortable with drawing faces or with drawing, I don't know, trees or whatever it is you draw.
A lot of you have characters I've seen in looking over your shoulder. You have things you draw all the time.
Yeah, whatever you draw all the
something
time.
Like that.
Yeah, that's what you should use in a new medium. Because the second you start working on something in a new medium you've never used before, you're going to want to focus on the medium. You don't want to focus on the drawing. So if you're not comfortable with a medium at first, you should probably start with, a face or a character that you've drawn a lot and are comfortable with.
And you'll notice, like we were talking this morning a little bit about characters and putting your own spin. You will see Larson has some Samurai Jack and is it Uncle Grandpa?
Yeah.
And you can see her putting her spin. You're smiling. Putting her spin on those characters, and I've got Ant-Man and Chewbacca and Furiosa. And again, it's like kind of doing your own thing with those characters. We'll talk about that more with the next assignment as well.
Okay, so that's a little bit of the dip pen, getting in and really moving. And you guys might want to come up and actually look at the areas because they're so tiny. I don't know how easy it is to see on your computer screen if you're following along, but I know this it's a little. Well, no, because some people are watching on YouTube too.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, on YouTube it kind of puts it in the right way. So I'm gonna switch over really quick to a watercolor brush. I get the more expensive watercolor brushes. I abuse the crap out of them, but they also last really long. So I don't know. I just it's the Winsor Newton Series 7.
Where do you get your Series 7 brushes?
I go to YouTube online
and
get them. Yeah. So light patch. I want to do thick and thin, and I try to draw as fast as I can with the brush. Try to get everything in there. I'm even a little looser with a brush than I am with a brush pen, just because it's just the nature of the medium. You can just be looser with it. Brush pens are a little more noodly, I guess, or I guess because they're just so much thinner. I always end up.
It's also something about holding the pen versus the brush.
Also, I do this thing where I will turn my page a lot as I work. I shouldn't do that too much, but I know you do it too.
Yeah.
Just because I'm not doing the smart thing and inking from one side to another. I'm inking all over.
Unconventional.
Yeah. I turn the page as I work. That way I'm not dragging my fat hand through a puddle of ink. got a very useful sword. It's one of those really great wiggle swords. All right. So, yes, the brush lines, and then I also want to show you guys some dry brush stuff. So, when I work larger than this, like way larger than this, I'll use sumi brushes and Chinese painting brushes. I don't really suggest using them at this size. It's kind of tiny. Normally I get like a big piece of watercolor paper and I work on that. But they are really great, and especially the ones that you can get right now in Utrecht and Diklik are super cheap. I get mine from a place online that's they're a little nicer. But they're great for dry brushing. So if you want to really work on brush control, get yourself one of these and try to draw something detailed, because they're very unwieldy brushes, but if you can kind of get a hang of them, they do a nice range of line. And since I have a bunch of squirrely mountains back here, I figure I'll do those in Chinese painting brush. And again, it's using ink and building up ink to make different areas, to push different areas, do some shading, do some volume. Things like that. And then to bring everything together, I'll go back in with a smaller brush or a brush pen, which this is probably still wet, I shouldn't do this, and I'll draw in some stuff. So a lot of inking and doing stuff in ink is deciding how much are you going to render, that is like hatching and stuff like that, and how much are you going to just sort of let the brush do the work, like in with these mountains back here. Okay. And then I could probably spend the rest of the day working on this. But did any of you guys have any questions? No one has any questions? It all makes total, perfect, awesome sense? All right. Right now I'm going in. I want to... Oh, yes? No. These I get off of a website called Oriental Art Supply. They have cheaper options than the ones I have. I like the nicer ones because, again, it's about durability. So you might want to go with the student grade quality, which are perfectly good brushes. They're excellent brushes. They just, they might not last quite as long as the one that's $12. So you get the $6 one. It's if you're just trying stuff out, I would always go more for the student grade, because it's not necessarily that it's a bad material. It's just that it's a slightly cheaper material, and therefore it's going to be not as long-lasting as, say, a more expensive brush. But Oriental Art Supply is great. They sell this really awesome red Chinese ink that's like the prettiest color red. It's like one of my favorite shades of red. And I'll do a lot of two-color inking in like red and black with that red. And I think I have some loaded into a little water brush. And so I'll like add red with the little water brush. But see, isn't that a nice red? If you come up here, it's awesome. It's like this beautiful orange red color. And in terms of things like microns and stuff like that, I won't say don't get a micron, but I feel like if you can kind of do the brush pen thing and the brush thing, it's going to inform your micron drawings a lot better and make your micron work stronger. Like if you can kind of handle a more unwieldy medium. It just kind of brings out a lot more in when you get to something that's really controlled and you can control really well. It's almost like running with weights on your legs and then taking the weights off. Does that make sense? Yeah. It's like that. That's fine. I'm telling them to run with weights on their legs.
What? What did I miss? I left and now it's workout with Larson.
Listen, man, I had a baby. We got a long way to go. So I'm just going in and adding in a little more like super fine detail. I could sit and do this all day. There's one more thing I want to show you guys, and that's ink wash.
Oh, yeah.
So I usually get, you can get these from Jet Pens, I get the water brushes, and I just load a percentage of gray into the brush. So it's already...
They also have something similar at Dick Blick, but it's actually in a weird spot. It's in the watercolor brush aisle.
Yeah.
And they have thick, thin, and medium tips, and you can kind of fill it with anything you want. A lot of people fill them with water to travel and do watercolor paintings on the road.
Right. And at this point, I would go in and try to lift some of this red out. I really was not gentle with my red pencil. I was like, blah, like I just splurged it on there. But, oh no. So this is going to go on thicker than it really is. It's going to dry
A little later.
a little lighter than this. Oh, it's dripping. That's all right. Look, it's nighttime now. Happy accidents. Oh no, it's suddenly night. I didn't plan on that, but now.
Actually, whoever said happy accidents, that's a really good. I mean, I'm sure your artsy-fartsy art teachers have said that to you. There's an artist that I really like. As you're I'm going to buy you some time.
Yeah, do that.
There's an artist by the name of Phil Hansen, and he was a pen and ink artist, and a wonderful, wonderful artist, super talented. They like to do the stippling, and I'm sure some of you kind of dig on the stippling and stuff. One of the things Phil Hansen did was I believe, he was holding the pen, and this is why you like lighten up on the way you hold stuff. He held the pen way too tight, and he actually got some nerve damage in his arm, and his hand would shake a little. And so he actually gave up art for a little while, and he was going to a doctor, and he was like, look, I want to go back to doing art. Is there anything like we can do about this nerve damage? And the doctor was telling him about different operations he could have and all these things. And then the doctor said to him, why don't you just embrace the shape? And like a light bulb went off. And
I, by the way, love that the doctor was giving him some like hardcore.
Some of the best advice I got about the arts was through doctors, because those guys, as much as they do deal on life and death, it's kind of boring. So they like creative people. And so that day, Phil Hansen went home and embraced the shape. And he's actually been in really well-known, world-renowned artist. You guys might see him on YouTube. He built a portrait of Jimi Hendrix out of matchsticks. And he showed a time-lapse on YouTube. If you're not in your head, you see it. Do you know what he did at the end? He set that shit on fire. He just like, boom, gone. I had an opportunity to kind of sort of work with him about a year or two ago. He was doing this wonderful online kind of art piece. Basically, he asked people to email and message them their story. And in this giant piece, he was writing in people's story. And up close, you could see all the type and see all the words. And when you pulled away, when you moved back, it was basically this giant, it was a pond with all these ducks in it. It was really beautiful. And so it was very strange. I got a text message, and it's like, it's Phil, I'm doing your story now. And I also, we both know this other guy named Phil. I'm like, fuck, is Phil texting me?
Yeah.
It wasn't the guy, it was Phil Hansen. So I hopped on YouTube, and I watched him write in part of my story, the book I shared with you guys last week. He was sharing part of it in his piece. And so, like, happy accidents is one thing, but, like, if you do something wrong, it may be that you're not doing it wrong. It could be your style trying to come to the surface. For me, I don't know if you draw anything weird, Larson. I draw necks really long and eyes really big. And the entire time I was here, for 4 years, people were like, make the neck a little shorter. Can you make the eyes a little smaller? Can you fix it, especially when I draw girls? The necks, and if you met the person I married, nice long neck.
She's a super long neck. It's hardcore.
I married a drawer.
You married when you're drawing.
And so, and that's on YouTube. That's
Yeah.
You understand that one. And here, it was seriously, it was my style trying to come to the surface. So you want to be aware of it. And the best place to be aware of it was when you experiment and when you play around in your sketchbook.
Yep. Right, so I went in and added a bunch of shading into this guy, and I can even go back and do some stuff in the rocks. The nice thing about, I'm doing this on watercolor paper, the nice thing about watercolor paper is it does take the
Washes.
the ink washes. Thank you. Oh my God, brain fart. It takes the ink washes really well. So I, of course, went and drew into.
What kind of watercolor paper?
Oh, this is oh, thank you. This is Arch's hot press.
Mm-hmm.
How
much a pad does that cost?
Arch's is pricey. Normally if I'm doing a job, I'll get it by the sheet because you can get it larger. The pads of Arch's are always a little more expensive, and I can cut the sheets however I need them to be.
So those of you interested in watercolor or maybe ink washes, you can play around with Arch's. Both of us would suggest buying individual pages to start.
Yeah,
if you find
because then you're
only
dropping like $5 for a page, and the page is like the size of this desk, so you can cut it down into a couple projects. Arch's is great if you build up. Like I build up my watercolors, I build up my washes, I build up my inks. Arch's takes a beating, and even in terms of color pencil, I build up my color pencil. So if you're a builder, like I like to build stuff up, Arch's is great for you. If you're a wiper, like you like to do something and then do a wipeout technique, which a lot of people do like to do, Fabriano is better for that. Don't try to build up on Fabriano because what's underneath will become like this big washy mess because it doesn't really hold stuff so well. I found that out the hard, sad way. But Fabriano is great for if you like to do the wipeout technique.
I saw on someone's desk they had a Canson sketchbook that had a bunch of different types of paper in it. And I think Dick Blick sometimes gives them away. We have a really good relationship with Dick Blick. Sometimes you'll see them in the lobby when you guys come in, usually right around admissions and beginning of semester. Spin that stupid wheel, win free stuff anytime they're here, and tell them you don't want the stupid T-shirt. Who cares? Get the pencils, get the sketchbooks, and experiment in that kind of stuff.
Yeah, even go for the paint. You never know what you can use for something. I hate acrylic paint. I still have a couple like random acrylic paints hanging around because I don't know. Maybe I'll be in my sketchbook and I want to just splurt some paint on something and see what it does. So I don't know. Now's the time to try everything. You guys are freshmen. You're not like stuck in a program yet. You're not stuck in a style yet. I would go have fun.
And there's quite a few of you that are from other disciplines, graphic design, animation, photography. This is the type of thing that one of the reasons you took a class like this is to experiment a little bit. So if there's a material, and again, keep it cheaper, but if there's a material you wanted to use and you're not using it in any of your other classes, this really would be the class. We have plans on doing probably watercolor, color pencil, the digital boot camp, hand-done type. We'll maybe markers if we can work that in. And if there's a medium or material that you really are interested in, let one of us know, and we can talk or demo a bit of that.
Okay, that's all I got.
You done?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to keep working on this throughout the class, but I'm not going to record it because that's crazy. So if you guys want to come and watch me work, you can totally come and watch me work. I did a whole scene, so I want to do like the whole background stuff and everything, and I'll post it up later.
All right, it's 2:45, which means we have about an hour left of class, which is awesome. You can correct and fix drawings. As a group, we should discuss, since you're all in the same room, what the plan for next week is.
Hold on.
All right.
Stop this. Okay. End
Scene.
broadcast.